final week of the 2023-24 American Hockey League regular season. The Belleville Senators battling for the final playoff spot in the North Division and a chance to clinch that spot on home ice this Friday if things go well the rest of the week. We'll explain throughout the course of this 20th episode of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Foote here along with Brock Ormond. Glad to have you with us. Before we get going, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. A 5-star rating and review would be outstanding for us. And we'll get you prepped for the final week of the season, which includes a back-to-back set with the Laval Rocket that we've been talking about for weeks, as well as one more meeting with the North Division leading Syracuse Crunch, who the Senators have had the number of all season long. We'll get you set for the week to come. Throughout the show, we will also talk to the Belleville Sens Man of the Year, the IOA American Specialty Man of the Year, Jacob Larsson, earning that honor this season, and we'll hear from Belleville Sens General Manager and Ottawa Senators Associate General Manager Ryan Bowness, all in this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast. But before we get to all of the stuff coming up, Brock, we got to recap the week that was for the Belleville Senators as well. Their final, we'll call it a long road trip. 3 games, 4 days to Toronto and Rochester. And while it didn't end on a great note with an 8-2 loss to the Rochester Americans, it certainly started off pretty well. Belleville winning 5 games in a row leading up to that loss against the Amerks on Saturday. And last week they pick up 4 of 6 points, which I think you're going to be happy with anytime you hit the road for 3 games.
Yeah, 100%, David. It was a pretty solid weekend, all things considered. Again, we'll wipe out that 8-2 loss on Saturday because that was a tough one. That bit a lot out of the Sens, and it was the second game of back-to-back. It was a couple hours earlier, so it was a different sort of routine, a setup for the Sens. And Rochester, give them credit. They came out flying in that game and really put it to the Sens. Early 4 goals in the first, and that was pretty much all she wrote. But the first 2 games were great. Nice comeback effort. Good resilience from Belleville, going down 2-0 in a tough building in Toronto at the Coca-Cola Coliseum. They tie it, and then Wyatt Bongiovanni with the tying and winning marker, and this is exactly what the Belleville Sens got him for, was for those kinds of clutch plays and coming through when the game and his team needs him. And Wyatt Bongiovanni gets the winner in that one. It was a great effort for the Sens and played pretty well. Even when they were down 2-0, they plugged away, they kept battling, they never quit, and it results in a pretty nice overtime win and taking 1 point out of Toronto. But then Friday against Rochester, again, another good battle. And the Sens, again, playing in that building. Blue Cross Arena has been tough on the Sens, but Belleville has really matched well against the Americans. And both Belleville and Rochester and the fans there at Blue Cross Arena, very knowledgeable. And Belleville took them right out of it. It was a good, solid effort all the way around. And even when they went up by 2, fell behind into a tie, Belleville, again, never quit it. They got an early goal in that third period, which they needed from Nicholas Montempallo. Great effort from him. The Finnish defenseman keeps getting better game in and game out, and the Belleville Sens end up pulling out a nice 6-3 victory on Friday night. So 4 to 6 points at this time of the year. I mean, David Bell would say it's not completely ideal. You want all 6. 5 out of 6 would be just as good, but 4 out of 6 isn't too bad, especially when you win twice, including one time in a come-from-behind fashion. That gets you prepped for a postseason where you're not always going to be up. You're going to have to battle and scratch and claw, and it's a lot tougher to come back from multi-goal deficits. So the Sens acquitting themselves well against a Marlies team that they have beaten the season series. So give the Belleville Sens full kudos for battling in what was a pretty tough weekend, and they came out of it on a decent footing, but they're still needing at least 2 more wins to wrap things up in the north, rather.
Yeah. Hindsight is always 20/20, and you can look at it as, well, you know, if they had won 6 points, they'd be 4 points up and a chance to clinch at home on Wednesday instead of having to wait until Friday against the Syracuse Crunch. But again, I think the main message has to be that they did win the week. They did compete hard, again, against divisional opponents, one of which they will likely see in the postseason. Both those teams from last week, should the Senators get in, they could see them both because they both qualified already. So more strong performances in the division despite only picking up the couple of wins. You mentioned Nicholas Montempallo with a 2-goal game, the first of his AHL career. Wyatt Bongiovanni's been extremely consistent for the Senators of late, as has Stephen Halliday, who we heard from recently on the program. He's got assists in 5 straight games after a couple of games without a point. And while maybe, still trying to get caught up in terms of speed, etc. in the American Hockey League, when it comes to his hockey smarts, his playmaking ability, it's been on full display, and he has certainly made an impact, I would say, for the Senators in his short time here.
Yeah, it's been great to see the efforts and great to see the increased ice time they're getting. And guys like Bongiovanni, Halliday, Jamison Reese, too, he's come along pretty nicely. And all in all, the Belleville Sens have a good young nucleus they can build off of. And yeah, the Bongiovanni deal in particular is one of those things where it's a shrewd deal and comes right at the AHL trade deadline. Pick him up from the Winnipeg, Manitoba system where he maybe needed a fresh start, and he comes to Belleville, and he's looked pretty darn good overall. And has Stephen Halliday, one of those guys that is a crisp playmaker, very creative with the puck, and now it's just trying to get him a goal because he is a playmaking type, but he comes into Belleville from the college game and from the USHL with the mantra that he's going to be a points producer, and he has been so far, but now we just got to see him get some goals because he does have a good touch around the net and a good nose for where the puck's going to be. So those young guys are making a big impact for Belleville, and it's great to see them complement some of the guys that have carried the load all season long, like Sokolov, Cruikshank, Cole Reinhardt, Dylan Hetherington, who unfortunately is gone for the year. That is a huge blow for Belleville. That's the only negative of this last week or so for Belleville, is losing a guy like Dylan Hetherington. But the young guys are stepping up well, and mentioned Montempallo earlier. He's another guy that's new to the team this year, played all year, and got his debut in the NHL with the Ottawa Sens. It's all going to bode well for the future for Belleville.
Yeah, and Nicholas Montempallo, who is practicing his javelin with his hockey stick on the ice right now, he was really pumped to score those 2 goals. You couldn't wipe the smile off his face, and they were not necessarily the prettiest goals. They were, pretty typical from a stay-at-home defenseman like himself. See an opportunity to put the puck to the net and get the bounce that works out for you, and that's something the Senators haven't had, quite frankly, over the last couple of months, is those bounces. So he gets a couple, helps to pace that attack in Rochester on Friday in the 6-3 win. The 8-2 loss on Saturday to the Amherst. Again, that game was basically over in the first period. Rochester obviously had a chip on their shoulders from the way that things went on Friday night. And let's not forget, as we're going to get into discussing the playoff picture, the Rochester Americans are only a point back of the Syracuse Crunch for first place. They have a chance to avoid playing or to have the top seed and to basically get a bye and get the winner of the 4-5 series if they can finish first. So ditto for Syracuse, who come in here on Wednesday. None of these teams at the top of the division that have already clinched are in any way satisfied with their results. The Toronto Marlies as well are 4 points back of Syracuse with 6 points to gain. So there's a chance that really anything can happen. Cleveland could fall down into the bottom. Belleville could miss. Belleville could technically jump up into 3rd or 4th. At this point, unlikely, I suppose. That's if they win out. If Belleville wants to make a big jump in the standings, they have to win the next 3 games and then see kind of where the chips fall elsewhere. But it really is messy, and we'll try to clean the playoff picture up for you a little bit coming up later on in the program. But for now, we'll just remind you about the standings. Syracuse in first at 84 points. Rochester in second at 83. Cleveland in third with 82. Toronto in fourth with 80. All 4 of those teams have clinched their spots. Belleville is holding on to that last spot with 76 points. Laval right behind them at 74. Utica right behind them at 73. Everybody but Laval has 3 games left to play, and we know that the Rockets' 2 games are against Belleville. So more on the standings and the playoff picture as we move along throughout the show. We'll give you a quick recap again of where the statistical leaders sit for the Belleville Sens coming into the week. Even though he hasn't been here for a couple of weeks, Angus Cruikshank still atop the points board at 46, though Garrett Pilon also has 46 points and will pass Angus Cruikshank the next time he finds the score sheet. Crooker's 24 goals lead the team. Pilon's 28 assists lead the team. Despite a decent stretch on the power play, no goals by Igor Sokolov, so he still leads the team with 8. The same guys with shorthanded goals: Chartier, Cruikshank, Ostapchuk, Pilon, Betts, and Bon Giovanni. Nicholas Montempalo, who we talked about, has the team's best plus-minus, taking that over from Tyler Klevin, and Mads Sogard continues to be the goaltending leader in both goals against and save percentage for the Senators after this past week and heading into the current week. 2 transactions we'll tell you about. Only one posted from last week. That was Matt Highmore being returned from the National Hockey League and rejoining the Belleville Sens here after quite some time up in the NHL. Zach Ostapchuk was recalled to Ottawa. I believe he will be back in time for Wednesday, along with potentially Yuri Smekel, and depending on the severity of the injury he suffered against the New York Rangers earlier in the week, potentially Boko Imama as well. So there is a little bit of reinforcements on the way from the NHL club, and Highmore again will have to get back into game shape, and Yuri Smekel will have to readjust obviously to coming back down. But still, reinforcements nonetheless.
Yeah, that'll help for sure. And you're not going to deny too many guys like Yuri Smekel and Ostapchuk and that from coming back down. They've been here for most of the year. And, Boko Imama will be crucial as well because he tends to play his best games when the games get tough. And that's Laval to a T. Syracuse can play tough as well, but Laval's on a whole other level because those guys like Boko Imama and Riley McKay had it out quite a bit, and then Ostapchuk dropped the gloves as well with McKay, and dusted him pretty good. So the Belleville Sens have the opportunity to bring that toughness and talent back into the lineup at a key part of the year, and it's so crucial to get the most out of them the last 3 games of the year. Sens, winning 3 in a row is crucial. Winning Wednesday against Syracuse with those guys in the lineup, if they do get in the lineup, will be huge to really just give themselves a little lease on life and lessen the load a little bit going into Friday, where they can hopefully wrap things up and get it on to the postseason for the second time in franchise history. And those guys have been so key all year. And Dave Bell will find areas for them to put them in the lineup. Matt Highmore too is another guy that has been clutch and guy that's always dangerous in the offensive front when he does get out there. Unfortunately, hasn't been in the lineup, as everybody knows, all the time all year. But, having that extra weapon in the top 6 or top 9 is going to be absolutely imperative for the Belleville Sens to get some offense going. Currently sitting with the fewest goals in the North at 202. So anytime you get a guy like Highmore or Ostapchuk, one of the top AHL rookie goal scorers, back in your lineup, you're in great shape. Yeah,
absolutely. And for this Belleville team that has not lacked leadership throughout the course of the season, they are without their top leader, if you want to put it that way. Brock kind of alluded to it a couple minutes ago. Dylan Hetherington got hurt late in the game on Wednesday at Toronto. He ended up having surgery for an upper body injury and in all likelihood is done for the season. It's a pretty big blow. Not just because he's your captain, he's also one of the most steady and one of the top physical presences on the blue line for the Senators. So they go into Rochester without him, but then Jacob Larsson can't play on Saturday. Max Gannett didn't play on Saturday either, and there are some holes on the blue line right now that the Senators don't really have bodies to fill with at the moment. There was some talk about maybe signing a PTO. But I think at this point, the hope is that those guys get healthy again. Can tell you that Jacob Larsson is at practice this week, so obviously he has made a stride, and maybe it was just a day off that he needed to get back to where he is. But no Max Gannett and no Dylan Hetherington for the time being. It's going to change the way the Senators, I think, approach things this week. Yeah, defensively, it definitely showed on Saturday. Again, they got some good guys in the lineup like Donovan Sabrango and Montempalo. They were both outstanding on the weekend, but at the end of the day, it's difficult for the Belleville Sens to kind of fathom or stomach losing your captain, your heart and soul, Dylan Hetherington. And all season, he has been that. He has been the type of guy that can lead by example, but he'll also step up and say something when the team needs it or they need a swift kick in the behind just to get them going. And Jacob Larsson, I mean, what can you say about him? He has been the everyman for Belleville. Solid defenseman, two-way guy, good offensive touch, a guy that is very steady and responsible in his own zone. And on top of that, as we alluded to, the Man of the Year nominee for the Belleville Sens for the American Hockey League. That is really impressive stuff because he takes the time in the community to really chat with the fans and especially with the kids. And that kind of stuff really sits with kids for, ages. And
if they get into hockey because of him, then that's just an outstanding thing to have on your resume. And Jacob Larsson has been great all year. We hope to see him back in the lineup very quickly. But, the D-Corps has been great all season long, and Max Gannett has been a big part of that as well. So it was tough to see those guys out on Saturday, and just the second half of back-to-back was tough for the Belleville Sens. No excuse at this point in the year, but certainly Dave Bell, as a defenseman in his own right, back in the pro days and with the Ottawa 67s, he knows a good defenseman when he sees one, and he knows what it takes for a blue line to help win a game, be part of a whole big system to help win a hockey game, or 2 or 3. And definitely when he looks down the bench, he misses those kinds of guys, obviously, when you get into that spot.
So no Larsson the other day. We believe he'll be back Wednesday. Hetherington and Gannett also out. Ryan McKinnon drew in over the weekend. He has played sparingly over the course of the season, but a guy who has always still been a fixture in the room. He's still been really present and a part of this club, even if he's not getting the ice time that perhaps he would like. So Ryan McKinnon's been drawing in. And then Senators also announcing this week that defenseman Thomas Hamara has been reassigned from the Brantford Bulldogs of the Ontario Hockey League to Belleville. Another guy who's missed a chunk of time this season due to injury. He only played, I think, 20-something games, and he'll join in, and if he's healthy enough and if they can get him up to speed, he'll make his AHL debut at a pretty important time of the season, but some reinforcements nonetheless. I mean, he's not going to be a game breaker from the back end, but a solid presence back there who does have a fair amount of experience at high level.
Yeah, Thomas Samara from Czechia, played at the World Juniors, and another one of those young top prospects in the vein of a Stephen Halliday, coming in and being a big piece, hopefully a big piece of this Belleville Sens team. Again, that's a lot to put on a young man's shoulders, but Thomas Samara is going to be a key piece to this Sens organization down the line. They see a lot out of him, and a guy that was drafted and comes here only 20 years old, which is something that a lot of people don't realize just how young these guys truly are. But he's good with time and space. Scouts have said that he's quite physical in his own zone. He can make nice long stretch passes. Also works well under pressure, and that's pretty much the key word here at this stage of the year is pressure, and a lot of it is going to depend on what these next 3 games come down to. And for Thomas Samara, it'll be interesting to see how he kind of reacts to all that. Stephen Halliday looks like he's fit in quite nicely with all that pressure, but the former Brantford Bulldog and Kitchener Ranger, he split the season actually with Kitchener and Brantford this year, 17 points in 26 games, and now this is his opportunity to shine, and we'll see if he can step in and maybe not fill the feet of Dylan Hetherington and Larsson and Gannett, but at least be as competitive and as tough to play against as Dave Bell hopes he'll be.
Yeah, and 44 total games in the OHL this year because he started the season in Kitchener where he was playing last season before going to Brantford. So Thomas Samara is here. We'll see if he gets in the lineup this week. We haven't been told for sure. Hopefully it's a case of the veteran guys are better and you don't have to throw a rookie, that deep into the fire like that. But he's here if needed, and starting to get his paces run through with the AHL club here in Belleville. We'll keep our conversation on the blue line when we come back. Jacob Larsson was named last week as the Belleville Sens IOA American Specialty Man of the Year. We will discuss when we return, and we will hear from the former first-round pick to the Anaheim Ducks when we come back to episode 20 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
Episode number 20 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast continues on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. David Foote and Brock Ormond here. We got you caught up on the week that was. 4 of a possible 6 points against Toronto and Rochester last week. Big games this week against Syracuse and Laval. A chance for the Senators to clinch a playoff spot on Friday. That'll be their first opportunity to clinch against the Laval Rocket, depending on what happens on Wednesday. Again, we'll clear all the scenarios up for you coming up later on in the program. We're going to talk defense here in this segment, specifically one defenseman, and that is Jacob Larsson, who last week was named as the Belleville Sens IOA American Specialty Man of the Year, and this is the award that is presented to a player on every club in the American Hockey League as their community ambassador, if you will. It's awarded for your community efforts, your commitment to the club, to the team, and to the town that your team is based in. And Jacob Larsson, the winner this year, Igor Sokolov, very deserving of that last season. And, as an organization, the Belleville Senators are, have become kind of known for the community involvement. It's a club that prides itself on getting players out and about in the community, and when it comes to doing that, school programs, restaurant visits, whatever it might be, Jacob Larsson has always been at the top of the list in terms of players that we would like to go out and be in the community, and he's always the first one on the list in terms of guys who are willing to do that. So a well-deserved honor for Jacob Larsson. Yeah,
absolutely, and a great choice. There's a lot of guys that could be chosen from this Sens team, but Jacob Larsson stands head and shoulders above the rest. He's been outstanding in the community. He's visited all sorts of school, like the school visits. You got the Quinny Mall fan support there. He comes and goes to that, and he's always one of the first guys that is going to agree to go out to an event and talk to the kids and talk to the fans. And the fans have been so great with him too, and the back and forth has been so outstanding, and it's unbelievable to think what you can do when you're a community guy like that. And on the ice, of course, everybody loves Jacob Larsson. He's a solid, no-nonsense player. Off the ice, he really can make an impact, and he understands that. He fully understands what being part of this community, or any community in the AHL, the NHL, and junior and college, what have you, can have on fans. And you can make fan for life if you really just talk to the kids, or at least sign an autograph, ask about their season, and overall just be a good solid citizen. And Jacob Larsson has been that to a T this year, and there's a lot of them in the American Hockey League, of course, and the whole list came out just recently, and Larsson's right there at the top. So a great guy, and overall could be a guy that makes a big impact for the Sens once he draws back into the lineup.
And from the 32 finalists, so each team picks a winner as their nominee, if you will, for the IOA American Specialty AHL Man of the Year award. And then from those 32 finalists, the league makes a selection as the overall winner of the Yannick Dupre Memorial Award for the IOA American Specialty AHL Man of the Year. The award named after a former Hershey Bears forward and AHL All-Star Yannick Dupre, who died in 1997 after a 16-month battle with leukemia. And again, that award recognizes the community efforts of AHL players. So that's enough blabbering for us about the award. Let's hear from the horse's mouth. Jacob Larsson joins us to discuss his nomination, his win as Belleville's IOA American Specialty Man of the Year for 2023-24. First of all, congratulations on that recognition. What's the reaction to that news?
No, I'm really honored to be selected for that, and I think anyone in this team honestly could have been selected. So, but no, it's an honor. I'm happy that they choose me. So, yeah.
Obviously, the community participation is a big part of being a Belleville Senator. It's something that this organization is trying to make a priority. But why have you kind of, been so willing to take part in these initiatives and to get out in the community?
I think it's a good thing. First of all, you meet a lot of great people and a lot of fans, which is fun. And it's a good thing. It's especially here in Belleville, it's a little bit smaller town. It's a tight community, and it's a good thing. Go out there, help each other out in one way or another. So I think it's an awesome thing to do that we do here with the team. So yeah.
Yeah, it can kind of help maybe get you a little bit more connected with the community and realize that there's more than just hockey going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Yeah, no, I think they're doing a great job. Everyone, like I said before, I think anyone in the team could have got this selection, and I think everyone is doing a great job with doing all the kinds of charity stuff.
Yeah, you've done all kinds of different events, the school visits, et cetera, et cetera. Are there maybe any favorite experiences or an experience that perhaps stands out? I always think about the hundreds of autographs you signed at the one school a few weeks ago, but what sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, it's always fun to go to schools, meet all the kids, and they always have so much energy, and they're always fun to talk to them. They have fun questions to answer, and so I'll say going to schools is probably one of my favorite things.
We talk about comfortability and getting out and helping to connect you to the community more. How has that comfortability maybe helped in your on-ice success this year, or do you see that as an impact at all?
I mean, maybe a little bit. You go out there, you meet people, and talk with them and interact with them, and then some of them you see at the game later on. But like I said before, I think it's an awesome thing to go out there, just meet with people, and like I said before, it's a tight community in Belleville, and so it's just fun. Go out there, meet people, and see how they're having it, and tell them how a day in a hockey player's life is, and all that kind of stuff.
All right, let's talk a little bit of hockey here before we let Jacob Larsson go. Last time we chatted in Laval, you guys were still just below the playoff cut line. You're back in 5th place now with a 2-point lead and a game in hand. Has that changed the perspective at all heading into this weekend set against Rochester?
Not really. I mean, every game is still very important. So we're just going to go out there and play our best. And it's like said, like we're in a playoff spot now. We want to still climb we still have a chance to climb in the standings. So that's what we want to do. So every game here coming up here is going to be important for us, that's for sure. Yeah,
and you've won 4 in a row. What have been the keys on this recent stretch of victories, and how do you continue to carry that momentum here through this weekend?
I think we've been playing real well as a team. I think everyone has been doing their part, and we started scoring some goals too, which is good. So we're just going to continue doing that. I think everyone now, like the system, everything like that is starting to click for everyone. So just continue with that, and hopefully we'll win tonight and this weekend. Yeah,
how much fun is it to play these playoff style, playoff time games?
Oh, it's the best. I mean, this is where you play for. Games like this and the playoffs, it's the best time of the year for sure.
It certainly is. Jacob Larsson, thanks again for the time. Congrats again on that recognition, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you so much.
So there's Jacob Larsson, and it's always interesting. Like, I like going to schools with Jacob, A, because of his personality, B, because he's so willing to sign autographs. Like, we had a solo school visit. Usually we try to send players in pairs. He was by himself. He delivered lunch to probably 8 to 10 classrooms. He must have signed 500 autographs. There was a line, every kid in the gym was lined up for an autograph, and I went up to him, as the handler, I suppose, and I said, "Hey, Lars, there's a lot of kids here. Time is valuable. If you want to go, we can cut this line down. We can get out of here." And he said, "Nope, no way. I'm going to sign for all these kids." He left with an autograph of one of the kids on his hand. And, he's just been such an amazing leader in the community. And his wife, Natalie, as well, has been a big part of things. And something I didn't really think about that Dave Bell pointed out when we were talking this week about Jacob's honor is that Lars has been a really big piece in helping the European players, the young guys that we have in this locker room, to acclimate and get accustomed to Canada and Belleville and the American Hockey League, especially a fellow Swede like Oscar Pettersson, who has told us Lars kind of took him under his wing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Oscar Pettersson said he's appreciated that wholeheartedly because Larsson showing a bit of hospitality and generosity by bringing a young guy in and kind of showing him the ropes because he's been around for a bit now, Larsson has. And, Ryan Bowness stated to the Sens, to us, that they've embraced the community wholeheartedly, and they set a great example for the team's prospects, like you said. And the thing is, he carries himself as a professional, and that's one big part of it is being out in the community. And some guys they enjoy that a lot, and Jacob Larsson's one of those guys that he understands that that's what it takes to be a professional, because it's not easy with the schedule they have and being on the road a lot and practicing and training and all that. There's not a whole lot of time. Plus, you got families involved too. So for Jacob Larsson to do what he's done all this season, very, very impressive, and a guy that should deserve all the laurels he's given this year.
And, married in the summertime. You talk about family and distractions and the other things that come along with life. Married in the summertime. His wife, Natalie, is back in Sweden as they await the birth of their first child here in a month or so. So a lot going on in the background, but he's always been a consummate professional, super engaged in the community side of things. And let's not ignore the fact, Brock, that he's having an outstanding year on the ice for Belleville as well. A career year for Lars. He's almost doubled his points total from last year. 7 goals, 24 assists in 58 games, and really has been just a cornerstone for this club on the ice and off. And we really hope he's back in the lineup on Wednesday against the Syracuse Crunch.
Yeah, on and off the ice, great individual and a great ambassador for the team, and could be a potential captain even one day. And that's a lot to put on his shoulders, but Jacob Larsson's a guy that can handle it for sure very well. And just quickly before we head to break, a couple players with Quinny connections named as well for respective teams. Should note for all the old Belleville Bulls fans out there, Brendan Gauntz was named for the Cleveland Monsters, as well as the San Jose Barracudas honoree, with former Quinny Red Devil, Trenton Golden Hawk, Wellington Duke, Ethan Cardwell nominated for the first time by the Barracuda, and for Gauntz, the second time I believe he's been nominated by the Cleveland Monsters. So all in all, nice to see some guys with Quinny connections getting their laurels and getting their due recognition for sure.
Awesome stuff. Congratulations to Larsson, to all 32 nominees, or winners, I should say, of their team awards for the IOA American Specialty Man of the Year. You can head to BellevilleSens.com to learn more about that award and about Larsson's involvement and accomplishments throughout the course of the season. When we come back, the general manager will be by. Ryan Bowness joins us to discuss the season, to talk about this playoff stretch drive, and what does a general manager do in this kind of limbo time in the season? He'll tell us when we come back to Season 2, Episode 20 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Don't miss 1 second of Belleville Senators action this season. The Belleville Sens Entertainment Network is the only place to hear live coverage of the Belleville Senators for all 72 games plus playoffs. Pre-game coverage begins 15 minutes before each game with David Foote, and the network is also home to the Belleville Sens podcast, the Belleville Senators Entertainment Network, presented by Deerhaven Farm and Garden. Tune in on the Belleville Sens app or BellevilleSens.com.
Episode 20, Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. We're into Segment 3. This is a 4-segment show. This week, we wanted to make sure we got you these interviews. Last segment with Jacob Larsson. This segment with General Manager Ryan Bowness. David Foote, Brock Ormond here. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the show. Toss us a 5-star rating and a review. We would much, much appreciate that. And a quick heads up that some of you who listen regularly to Belleville Sens Game Day on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network may have heard this interview already. You might have heard the Larsson interview as well. But for those who aren't able to catch these chats during games, during broadcast, it feels important to make sure that they still get out to the fans and the listeners. So we're going to hear a discussion with Ryan Bowness from Wednesday's game in Toronto, but it's pretty wide-ranging. It touches on a couple of those deadline moves that we talked about frequently, especially earlier on in this show, in terms of the impact that guys like Wyatt Bongiovanni are making. We'll get some thoughts on some of the prospects like Stephen Halliday, etc., coming up here with Ryan Bowness. But it's been a busy season for Ryan Bowness. He's been in the role a little over a year now. He's had a full season and trying to navigate everything that's going on in Ottawa, too, with the early season management changes, etc. It's been a busy year for Ryan Bowness.
Yeah, it has been, and he's still making moves, too, getting those guys you mentioned and bringing them in, getting Thomas Hamara signed, who we mentioned earlier, Bongiovanni, Halliday, Reese, and and they fit all in pretty well to that puzzle that the Belleville Sens have formulated going down the stretch drive here, trying to get into the AHL playoffs. And certainly it's been one of those seasons where, Ryan Bowness has pretty much pushed all the right buttons. The Sens have improved in their win and point total from 2022-23, and it seems like they're a well-balanced group this year with the guys they've carried over from the previous year or previous years in some cases, and the guys he brought in this year. And Garrett Pilon, one of those key acquisitions as well at the start of the year, signing him to that year contract, and it's it's fit really well. And Ryan Bowness is a little bit green at the AHL stage. He's one of the younger GMs, but he's fit really well, and he knows hockey. I mean, he's got that bloodline with his father, Rick, who's in Winnipeg right now, and the Jets are going to the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, too, which start Saturday. So
great year for Winnipeg.
Great year for Winnipeg, and a great year for the Bonuses as well. So if Belleville can get into the playoffs, that'll be a huge feather in the cap of a guy like Ryan, who has, like I said, pushed all the right buttons. Him and Dave Bell have worked together well, and it's paid off here at the American Hockey League level. And you see a lot of guys, it's proof in the pudding, not just here, but also in Ottawa. You got how many guys that have gone up to Ottawa this year? It feels like 15 or 20. It's been a lot. And not just this year, but years past as well. So they're doing both sides of the coin. It can be a tough line to walk at this stage and at this level when you got the NHL, you got guys coming back and forth, and you got to fill in spots as well and kind of tap into the ECHL too. And the Allen Americans have been a great ECHL franchise as well to have. Guys like Taryn Pfizer, Kevin Mandolese, among others, have been at that level and have worked out really well. So when you're juggling 2-3 jobs basically at once, it's hard to work it in. But Ryan Bowness has done a great job with this Belleville Sens team, and he's deserving of being in a position to try and clinch a spot in the Calder Cup playoff. His team has looked pretty good for long stretches this year.
Well, let's hear what the GM has to say. Ryan Bowness on the Belleville Sens podcast, episode 20 of Season 2. Thanks for taking some time, Bones. Good to see you.
Anytime, David. Thanks for having me.
Busy times, I imagine. This time of year, we got the playoff push here in Belleville. Obviously, things in Ottawa have not been as we would like, but lots of room to improve, and lots of players from Belleville will eventually have a hand in helping to improve that situation. Maybe just from the Belleville perspective, we're in the dogfight for the postseason, sitting in 6th in the division, but I don't know if that necessarily is reflective of how this team has played this year. How have you felt about the season to this point?
I mean, pretty pleased to this point. Like you say, we're in a battle with essentially 4 teams now, getting down to the wire with 2 spots remaining, and we're right in the mix. I think we kind of control our own destiny. When you look at the teams around us, we got the big one here with the Marlies tonight, and then we've got 2 games in hand on Laval and play them home and home to finish. So it really could come down to that. But listen, with the amount of turnover and call-ups and that's just the American Hockey League, right? You've got to be able to adapt to that, and I think Belzy and the coaching staff have done an amazing job, and we just got to finish strong here and make sure we get in the playoffs.
Yeah, and as much as it's nice to be kind of set and maybe relaxing a bit come the end of the season, you're going to make the playoffs. I feel like there's something to be said for playing these kind of high-stakes, meaningful games down the stretch leading into the postseason.
Absolutely. We always talk about it. Winning is part of development. I think it's great for our prospects to be playing in these huge games, and where you've got to be dialed in every shift, every night to finish the year in order to make that playoff push and hopefully go beyond the next couple of weeks, which we plan to do. So I think it's a big part of their development playing in these games, and it'll only help them get to the next level.
And ditto, I assume, for getting into the playoffs themselves. That must be huge for these prospects in teaching them, how to play in important do-or-die type of games.
Absolutely. It's only going to ramp up. I feel like from the second half on, and then, like you say, we get down the stretch here and get into the playoffs, and the games are only get tougher and tougher as we go. So that's only going to benefit the players and everybody around.
Chatting with Belleville Sens GM Ryan Bowness. Let's key in on a couple of the players that you've had a hand in bringing in, and let's maybe start with the couple guys who came in at the trade deadline in Wyatt Bongiovanni and Jamison Reese. 2 guys in a little bit of different situations, but both seem to have fit in pretty nicely here. What was it, maybe starting with Bongiovanni, that you liked about his game?
Yeah, we were just trying to add some depth up front. Obviously, with the injuries to the guys that are out for the season up front, we felt like we needed to add a couple bodies. So Wyatt became available from the Moose. They had a number situation, and listen, he's a high-character kid. He was a captain at Quinnipiac. All the reports were pretty favorable on him, and it just became a numbers issue for him in Manitoba. So when he became available, we started engaging with the Moose on bringing him aboard, and he's been great so far. I think he's come as advertised. He's a pretty versatile guy. He can play a strong two-way game and play the middle and the wing, so we've been happy with him so far.
Yeah, and it took him a game or two, but seems to really be fitting in nicely. Same can go for Jamison Reese as well. Got his first couple assists in a Belleville uniform the other weekend, and he was in such an odd situation being with Carolina, who didn't have an AHL affiliate this year. And in chatting with him, it seems like this is a great opportunity for him to kind of steady himself and get back on the right track.
Yeah, it's a refresh for him, certainly. I sympathize with him in the situation where he was kind of bounced around, like you said, leading up to this point. So it's been a little bit difficult for him to get rounded into game condition, I guess. But I feel like every game he's improved. You can see the steps in his game overall, both sides of the puck, and he's an energy guy. And as you know, when you get more and more into game shape, it's a little bit easier to play that style that he likes to play.
Take a couple more minutes here with the Sens GM, Ryan Bowness. How about Stephen Halliday? He's played 3 or 4 games now after coming in from Ohio State University. A couple of points for him last weekend, too. And to me, one of those guys who really, like a lot of the rookies for Belleville this year, doesn't seem like it's his first pro game. He's kind of settled in. You notice what he's trying to do offensively, and he's become a piece already.
Absolutely. We saw him play college this year at Ohio State. He had a good year there, a good couple years there. So we felt this was the time to bring him out and get him acclimatized to the pro game before his first full season next year. And he's come in and played pretty well so far. We've it's tough to enter a situation like this, your first pro experience coming out of college, but he's been good, and we only expect him to get better. He's a big, skilled guy that is going to improve every game.
Yeah, the hockey sense, the smarts, is something I've noticed immediately from him. Just he knows where his teammates are on the ice. He knows how to get them the puck, and really looking forward to seeing how he develops. Just before we let you go, final couple weeks of our regular season and then the playoffs, what does the role of the general manager kind of entail at this time of year, where you know there's going to be turnover on the roster? You're maybe trying not to think too far ahead with the playoffs down the line, but what do things look like for you right now?
Yeah, I think when you're in a manager position, you're always looking ahead. Certainly the focus, obviously, right now is on here and getting these guys in the playoffs, and the coaches are the team's in good hand with our coaching staff in that regard. But no, I've been out scouting. Obviously doing the game here tonight, and then going to finish off once our season audit is done. We'll be at those Laval games back to back, and then they'll try and put as much emphasis on these on the Belleville Sens as we can to finish off, because it's a very important piece of our organization, as you know, David, and Mr. Andlauer has come in with Steve and made that a mandate that the Belleville, the Belleville community and the fan base is very important to the franchise. So we're trying to follow through on that and hopefully give them some nice playoff games to look forward to here.
That's the hope. It starts with this game in Toronto, and then obviously continues through to that home with Laval next weekend. Ryan Bowness is the general manager of the Belleville Sens. Thanks again for the time. We'll hopefully see you playoff time.
Exactly. Thanks, Woody. Appreciate it.
Always nice to catch up with Bones. And full disclosure, when we got to Toronto on Wednesday, we traveled day of, which is not unusual for a Toronto trip, but a little unusual in the grand scheme of things. And got up to the booth a couple hours before the game, but none of the extra cables. So every arena supplies ice effects and a PA feed and the stuff that you need to make your broadcast sound good. None of that was plugged in, and I had no idea how to plug any of it in. Every rink is different. Long story short, I had to spend about 40 minutes working with tech staff at Coca-Cola Coliseum. Bones walks in for his interview, and we're in the middle of trying to figure all this out, and I thought he was just going to go, you know what, we don't have time. We'll try to do this another time, but he hung out. He waited till we got it sorted. He sat down and did that chat, and always so grateful of the time that Ryan and all the senior staff with the Senators make for us on the Belleville Sens podcast and on the broadcast. So that was really nice of him to stick around, and nice to hear that he's pretty pleased with how the season has gone. And as much work as there's been for him throughout the year, Brock, there's going to be a lot of work for him and Steve Staios and all their scouts, etc., to do this summer as well, because there's going to be a lot of turnover or potential turnover here in Belleville that those guys are going to have to basically rebuild the roster.
Yeah, we've alluded to that before, too, where there's about maybe 7 or 8 guys that are under contract next year. That's it. Like, there's not a whole lot. And, of course, bringing in the young guys like Ostapchuk, who's been here all year, or Hamara now, who's new, and Stephen Halliday, those are going to be the key pieces that Belleville will build around next year if they don't make Ottawa, of course. But Ryan Bowness, does have a lot of work to do, and you're going to see probably a pretty – not a complete overhaul, obviously, but you're going to see some new guys, new blood in the lineup for the Belleville Sens next year. So it's always interesting, especially at the start of a season when you're trying to get to know some of these new guys and learn what their traits and tendencies are on the ice. And Bowness is going to be tasked with that heavy workload. And like I said, that's part of what a GM does at the AHL and NHL levels. And professionally, it's been nothing but great for Bowness this year. And so he'll come to that when the time comes, but hopefully doesn't have to do it for a while. The Sens can make it to the Calder Cup playoffs, maybe go on a big long run to June and play in that Calder Cup final, which will be such a huge boost for this area. The community has been blessed with some great hockey teams at various levels as recently as this year, and the Belleville Sens want to try and add on to that. And Ryan Bowness has been a big reason why, because he's got these players, or the majority of these players in this lineup.
Yeah, and he's got to recruit new ones to potentially come to Belleville. What's an easy way to recruit players to come join your team? Deep playoff run, strong prospects of getting back in the playoffs next year. All of these things will help to bring in new, better players for Ryan Bowness and the Senators. So, a playoff run could be a big deal, will be a big deal. We'll talk about the playoff picture and what lies ahead for the Senators this week when we return to the Belleville Sens podcast, Season 2, Episode 20 on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. Stay with us.
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
Last segment of the week on the Belleville Sens podcast, Season 2. We're up to Episode 20 for this 2023-24 season. David Foote, Brock Ormond here. Thanks again to Jacob Larsson and Ryan Bowness for their time in recent weeks and recording those chats with us. Players are starting to file off the ice for practice. We got our recording done a little bit later than usual this week. And I can tell you, Thomas Hamara is still out there working on things. Jameson Reese is out there. Wyatt Bongiovanni, I don't think, ever gets off the ice. Nor does Oscar Pettersson, Taryn Fizer. These guys all going through their paces with Nate McKeever and Chris Dennis. Tyson Teichman's out there, too, still with a couple of the goaltenders who all played last week. Belleville going through all three goaltenders. Levi Marilainen had to make 2 appearances after Kev Mandalese was pulled in Rochester, and these guys will all obviously be heavily relied upon this week as the Senators try to punch their ticket into the Calder Cup playoffs. It's a confusing playoff picture, to say the least. The easiest way to, I guess, get all the information in front of you is to head to the AHL.com. If you click or mouse over the standings button up at the top menu and click on the playoff primer, that's going to bring up basically a spreadsheet. It's got all the information you need, team records, how many games they have left, who their upcoming opponents are, and maybe the most important statistic at this time of year, the magic number. And that is essentially the number of points that a team has to gain to clinch a playoff spot. The magic number can shrink if your team gains standings points or the team with the highest possible total outside of the playoff picture fails to gain standings points. Right now, that's the Laval Rocket. Utica Comets are only 1 point behind them. So those two right now, Belleville basically, it's the same mindset as it's been for a couple weeks, Brock. Still collect as many points as you can, but if you're looking for a finite way to clinch a playoff spot, it's basically don't lose to Laval on the weekend and hope that Utica doesn't have a strong week as well, because Belleville beats Syracuse Wednesday. They go into the home game against Laval 4 points up on the Rocket and can clinch their playoff spot with a point. But if they lose on Wednesday, they go into Friday 2 points up on the Rocket, 3 points up on Utica, and it leaves a lot still up in the air in terms of how and when the Senators qualify. The earliest they'll do it is Friday. It'd be much nicer to do it on Friday here at home than having to worry about going to Laval on Saturday.
Yeah, it would be a great thing to put them out on Saturday, though, to be completely honest, right in their home building, a Glass Bell that's been thorn in Belleville's side since they got here in 2017 in the AHL. But, 2 wins on home ice would be crucial, and it would be much deserved, too, because a Syracuse Crunch team that is sitting number 1 right now in the North Division, but yet the Belleville Sens have had their number right from day one, pretty much. 6 wins in 7 games at this point, but obviously the history part of it doesn't really play into effect. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, they just got to win. They just got to win. That's the simple long and short of the situation. But, getting at least 1 point, preferably 2 against Syracuse, would be outstanding, and then they shrink that magic number down a couple. Then they got an opportunity to zonk out Laval and get the victory and move into the Calder Cup playoffs and put out a team that's given them a hard time this year. The Laval Rocket have always been a tough opponent. Belleville actually dominated them last season, 9 wins in 12 games, but Laval still made it anyway because the Sens had a bit of trouble against the other teams. This year it's been not so much the other way around. Laval has come back strong after a bit of a slow start for them against Belleville, but the Sens have really done themselves a good favor in putting themselves in this situation. They've been good against Syracuse. They've already got the season series win against them. Just go in, take 2 points out of them, and then go to Laval, or go here at home against Laval, play them, knock them out, and just make that Saturday game just a prep game for the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll do a full playoff preview show next week on the Belleville Sens podcast. Look for that Tuesday afternoon. Should the Senators finish in 4th or 5th place, which is the most likely scenario, the first round of the playoffs would open likely next Wednesday. That's April 24th, either here in Belleville or on the road against whoever the Senators are set to play against. So we'll wait for a full playoff preview episode, but can tell you that I like Belleville's chances against almost anyone in the division this year. Senators over 47 games against the North, 27, 17, 1-2, which is a really good record against these teams that you see all the time. Belleville was 5-2 against Rochester. 5-2, 0-1 over 8 games. As you mentioned, Brock, they're 6-1 against Syracuse. They went 6-3-1 against the Toronto Marlies. They went 5-3. 0-0 against the Utica Comets. The only 2 teams that they have losing records against are Laval and Cleveland. So, and even then, the Cleveland games were back at the beginning of the season, just about. I think November is when we were in Cleveland. We haven't seen the Monsters in quite some time, and Belleville did get 1 win over Cleveland. They're 1-3. And then against Laval, 4-5-1 with a couple of tight games, as that season series is always pretty back and forth and tight one, except like you said last year, a little bit more spread out. But I think the point of this ramble is that should you get in, get in, give yourself a chance, and I really like how the Senators match up with everybody in the division over a 7-game series.
Yeah, same.
When you get to 7 games, I should also say, because
right,
the first round is best of 3, the next couple rounds are best of 5, so it does take a while to get to 7 games. But over a series, nonetheless, this team has shown that they don't lose back-to-back a lot, and when they get an opportunity against a team that maybe it didn't go so well the first time, we see the improvements, and they're able to change the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely, and Belleville has played, if they happen to beat Toronto, if they happen to get in, they play Toronto. I like their chances against the Marlies, and the travel is not too bad. For the American Hockey League, 2.5 hours is not a bad trip at all, and it's pretty much a breeze for the Sens team because they've made it 5 times this year already, and they've won a few there. And you take out that 8-0 game back on January the 12th, and the Sens and Marlies were tight, right? Pretty much from game 1 all the way through. Several games went to overtime, I think 4 at least. Went to Scotiabank Arena, had a good outing there on Boxing Day, won that game. Sens against the Marlies have always step their game up just those couple extra notches, much like a Laval. And, of course, every game in the North is crucial at this stage. But you bring up the Marlies and how deep they are, how they got just the quantity of players that they have is unbelievable. And you're talking to Danielle Bain from Toronto, and she said about how there's a bunch of players coming in new just right at the end of the season here, and it's potentially kicking guys out that have been here all year. So it's difficult to fathom what kind of depth that Toronto team has. But Belleville's got some depth too, and even without the likes of Yarventi and Daou, Boucher, Tyler Boucher, and Hetherington, who are all hurt, the Sens bring in these guys like Halliday and Reese and Bon Giovanni. You got a draft guy that's been good. You got a couple guys needing fresh starts, looking for a clean slate. And they've all fit in nicely to the picture. So the Belleville Sens have every opportunity to just squeeze in there and maybe pull a Florida Panthers run from last season, because that was a heck of a run for that team. And, I mean, I don't know, like, it's putting a lot of pressure, but the Sens have been winning pressure, staring it right in the face, and taking it and using it as fuel for their fire this year. So Sens certainly would be behooved to get in and yeah, oust Toronto and a best-of-3 series, which is so tough and unpredictable, as you know. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen, because the Sens have every opportunity to be just as good as the other 20 or so teams in the playoffs.
More information on playoff scheduling, opponents, and tickets all to come, so stay tuned to the Belleville Sens socials at Belleville Sens and our website, BellevilleSens.com. There are tickets available for Wednesday night against Syracuse. That's a winning Wednesday, which includes happy hour before the game, $5 tall boys, $2 hot dogs from gates at 6 p.m. through to puck drop. And then Friday against Laval is our fan appreciation game. The players will do their red carpet arrivals starting around 3:30 or so. We'll have lots going on inside the rink when gates open at 5:30. With early doors on Friday. Belleville Sens belt bags, fanny pack sort of thing, if you are looking for another accessory for the summertime. So those are being given away, a whole other bunch of prizes and games and activities. Our friends from the Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board will be here to play a game of Plinko. Lots going on Friday, and you know, as much as we want you to be here to experience all of that other stuff, we want you to be here to experience the intensity of playoff push hockey. It's do or die right now. Like, we're at the point of the season where the Senators can't really afford to make any mistakes. Nobody can, because it's either you play well now, you get in, and then you're in the playoffs, or you don't play well now, and your season's done. And a full building of Belleville Sens supporters would make an incredible difference for this group over those two games this week. And like we said, we'd much rather have the guys lock it up by winning Wednesday, Friday, rather than have to leave things up to, we'll say fate, but put things in the hands of the hockey gods come Saturday back in Laval. The crowd is so important, and I can't stress that enough. Exactly, and the fans have been coming out, pretty decent crowds the last couple times we're at home, and now I hope to continue that on. Syracuse is a team that usually draws fairly well. Laval is one of those things that, yeah, Friday night is going to be huge. We hope to see it be huge. The Laval Rocket are a team that do draw a lot of Montreal fans in and people who just want to see good hockey. And the Belleville Sens and Laval Rocket have really been an entertaining, exciting series. And with the fact that Belleville has that extra game, that's the biggest thing about that is they've got the extra game, the game in hand. So Laval Rocket just have to sit and sweat it out on Wednesday night now, because the Sens are they have that extra advantage of having all those wins against Syracuse, but they need a victory big time here against the Crunch. It goes without saying. And, yeah, if they get 2 points on Wednesday, they seal that. Friday night could be for all the marbles or just to get in. And then, like you say, Belleville Sens have the ability to be a good playoff roster and to push the Toronto Marlies to the brink. And even with the extra game on the road, potentially they have the opportunity. And if they can get a win in Toronto game 1 and then win it game 2, it's going to be just that much better. But they got to get in first, and they can't afford any losses, basically. Like 3 losses would put them out. 2 would not be good either. They got to get points, and they got to seal wins and celebrate a playoff clincher, basically. Friday night is going to be hopefully it if they could try and push out the Syracuse Crunch on Wednesday. Yep, it's the biggest week of the season 3 games to go. Wednesday against Syracuse, 7 o'clock puck drop. And same for Friday against Laval, and then Saturday in Laval for 7:05. You can hear all 3 games if you're not going to be at the rink on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network or AHL TV. But again, we hope that you will be here and try to help push the Sens into the Calder Cup playoffs for the second time in franchise history. With that, we wrap up episode 20 of Season 2. Thanks again to Ryan Bowness and Jacob Larsson, to you for listening, to Brock Ormond here in the booth, and David Foote saying we'll talk to you next week where we tee up the playoffs. And we'll leave you with our highlight of the week from this past week, an overtime winner from Wyatt Bongiovanni on Wednesday in Toronto. He comes. Slides it down to Clevin. Below the goal line. Out for Bongiovanni. Scores! He scores! Wyatt Bongiovanni wins it for the Senators in overtime. And Belleville get 2 points up on Laval. They're back in the playoff places. They've won 4 in a row, and they head to Rochester on a hot streak with a couple of games against the Amherst looming here.